Can I tell you a secret?
Welcome to Unbottled Secrets, the podcast where my truth becomes your entertainment. I'm Vakira. Y'all, I'm beginning to think March will be the month dedicated to healing from within, especially coming off the heels of the forgiveness episode. And quick sidebar, that episode has been such a great conversation starter. I am so happy with the reception it has received. There have been people who felt validated, uplifted, and even convicted after listening. It was just the nudge I needed to continue to crank out more fantastic content. So thank you to all who've listened. I really, 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 really appreciate it. Now back to our scheduled episode. What if I told you that your mind, more than any other external force, is the one keeping you from your destiny? That inner me has quickly become the enemy. But before we jump into all of that, we got to set the atmosphere with a Bible verse. Today's verse is taken from Romans chapter 8, verses 31 through 32. What then shall we say in response to these things? If God is for us, who can be against us? He who did not spare his own son, but gave him up for us all, how will he not also, along with him, graciously give us all things? So I recently had a conversation with an apostle. He was such a great and powerful man. And the first thing he said after we exchanged very brief pleasantries was that I have demonic strongholds on my mind. These forces are causing me to experience loads of anxiety, depression, self-doubt, etc. These, which honestly was entirely true. I'm an extremely anxious person. I've battled with depression for years. I'm a chronic overthinker, and I notice that my mind tends to play the most, what can I say, weirdest tricks on me. But what he said afterwards is what really prompted me to include this into the conversation. These strongholds are what's keeping me stuck and stagnant, because I'm believing the lie that I don't deserve good things, so much so that I forego seeking better opportunities, or in most cases, I give my last even when I'm lacking so that others could have. It's like that phrase, burning myself so others could feel its warmth. That's what I was doing. Case in point, I recently purchased a car, and if you follow me on Instagram, you read my very, very lengthy caption about how Billy, my old car, was a literal death trap. I was wasting so much money that honestly could have went towards a down payment for a newer and safer vehicle. But me being cheap and afraid of car payments for whatever reason, I suffered with Billy because I was comfortable in my struggle. Whew. That is a word, being comfortable in struggle. I should definitely take a note for another podcast episode, but I digress. Needless to say, getting a new car wasn't a purchase out of vanity, but out of necessity. And shameless plug, go listen to episode 2. By the grace of God and favor, I was able to get my new car pretty seamlessly. However, I was hesitant to share the good news about my car because I felt bad. Around that time, my mom and my grandmother were both having car issues. My grandma actually lost her car. And here I am living it up in my brand new Toyota. The excitement I once had felt like a burden. Now, this isn't the first time I felt like I should lack or be delayed because people around me were suffering or they weren't in a good place. Honestly, I could spend this entire episode just giving example after example after example of how I self-sabotaged myself. It's a dreadful cycle I desperately need to break because I shouldn't have to base my decision making or my joy on external factors. Nor should I feel guilty for experiencing all the goodness that God has for me. And you know what's crazy? When I was first conceptualizing this episode back in January, I would have blamed these negative attributes on simply being an empath. But after speaking with the apostle, I now know that this is a trick of the enemy. Circling back to Romans chapter 8, verses 32, when I think about how gracious and merciful God truly is, especially to us who only deserves death at the end of the day, but we've been given the chance of life, all other good things that happen to me are just a testament of how good God is. And when I read that verse, it also humbled me because instead of being thankful for the provisions I have been given and the favor that has been placed over my life, here I am looking to destroy it because other people around me are suffering. Like, that's not empathy. That is just toxic. And honestly, I have to realize, and I've come to realize, that what's meant for me will always happen according to God's perfect timing. So if I get a new car, go on an expensive trip, or get an amazing opportunity, I should not hide them in shame because the only thing I came to this earth deserving is death and damnation. But here I am, saved and favored, and I don't know who this is touching, but we are saved and we are favored. And to God be the glory. To God be the glory. I feel like I just dragged myself on this episode, but did it need to happen? Yes. Did y'all possibly catch some strays in the process? Possibly. But anywho, that wraps up this week's episode. If you like the episode or the pod, please, 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 please give me a positive review. I need the algorithm to point the people in the right direction so they can join in on all the fun. And if this is your first time listening, please subscribe to the podcast. And if you're really locked in and there ain't no switching up, follow me on my socials. They're listed in this episode description. Share if you care, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.